Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 12 years now, we've been asking the franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show today. We're meeting with Jason Anderson, the president of the fastest-growing coworking franchise, VentureX. VentureX strives to provide high-quality, flexible, collaborative spaces to business professionals, allowing their members to grow their companies and exceed their business goals. We're going to talk to Jason about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 12 years now, we've been asking the franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Jason Anderson, the president of the fastest-growing co-working franchise, VentureX. VentureX strives to provide high-quality, flexible, collaborative spaces to business professionals, allowing their members to grow their companies and exceed their business goals. Hi, Jason. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Marty. How's it going?
I'm doing great, Jason. It's great to have you on the show. We always like to ask our guests, Jason, where are you calling from this morning?
I'm calling in from our world headquarters here in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Beautiful. How's the weather down there today, Jason?
It's hot and humid, so it's summer in Florida.
It is, I know. But you know what? You guys got the winter thing going, don't you?
Yes, sir.
That's fantastic. When I was studying VentureX, Jason, I thought you really had an interesting history. Maybe, we can kind of like go back to the beginning and talk about, how this whole thing came about, because I thought it was a very interesting concept.
Well, sure thing. I mean, I actually personally started my business in a co-working space about 12 years ago, which led me into the franchising business from a real estate broker into United Franchise Group. But VentureX started as a single location co-working space in Naples, Florida. It started by a few real estate developers that had developed a mixed-use development and saw that there was a need in Naples. And, Naples wouldn't have been a prime target market for co-working,
right.
But that space quickly got filled up at 100% occupancy with a waiting list.
Wow.
They connected with the United Franchise Group around 2015. We saw that the industry was a prime target market for franchising, and we launched it as a franchise in 2016. And in those 3 years, we've already became one of the 10 largest co-working spaces. We've opened up 21 locations in the U.S. and Canada. We've sold 80-plus franchises and now have signed agreements in 26 countries.
That's incredible, Jason. And it's great. We had many years ago, we had Mr. Titus on the show, United Franchise Group. And, I mean, they're really they're also experts, I would say, on franchising too, aren't they, Jason? So they really know their craft or their skill, don't they?
Yes, sir. And I was working with Ray and working and developing the consulting arm of United Franchise Group, and that's how Venture X was actually brought into the company. So absolutely.
That's great. It was interesting when I was looking at the stats, Jason. I saw one thing that really just it stood out to me. It mentioned that the majority of the workforce will be freelancers by 2027. I said that's an impressive number, isn't it?
It is, and I mean I think when you look at the gig economy and the way that the overall economy is going, you're finding that some people may actually be both, right, where they're working full-time jobs and then they also have second types of gigs or they're working towards being an entrepreneur. I don't think there's ever been a time where it's been more hip, accessible, and a viable option for people to be entrepreneurs, or I even use the term intrapreneur, which is creating businesses within your company.
That's fantastic. When you're meeting with someone, I know UFG does a lot of, they attend a lot of the franchise shows, Jason. I mean, when you're meeting with a prospective franchisee for the first time and, they came up to your booth and the typical questions always like, so what do you guys do? How do you typically describe the Venture X franchise to a prospective franchisee? Because I know you talk to a lot of people at these franchise shows.
No, absolutely. And, we're just coming off the heels of the New York Franchise Show where we were exhibiting there. And 3 years ago, we would have to explain what co-working even was. I mean, I actually had somebody come up to the booth and saw the word, and they asked me, what is coworking, right? So so people really, even 3 or 4 years ago, didn't understand what it is. But specifically in New York, where WeWork is now the largest tenant, we no longer have to explain what co-working or flexible shared space is. And for people to kind of grasp and understand, we pretty much just tell them we're the 5-star solution provider in co-working and flexible workspace. And people tend to get it, right, because they'll specifically ask, like, well, what makes you different than Regis or WeWork? And this is not a knock on either company. I've actually used and been at both of the places, but they're targeting different segments of the market than we are, where we compare Regis to, let's say, a Courtyard Marriott. Very nice, meets the bill, foots the bill for pretty much everything you need in being there, and it's nice business class environment. So I like to compare them to the hospitality and hotel industry. So again, Regis would be like a Courtyard Marriott, where WeWork would be more like the W Hotel. And when I used to travel with my wife, I would always look to stay at the W. We had the opportunity to go to Barcelona. I stayed at the W in Barcelona, and became the last time I stayed at a W because at midnight somebody was throwing up in the lobby leaving the bar, and we couldn't sleep because of the nightclub upstairs. And that's a huge environment of people that want to be in that environment, including me at one point. So I always tell people 10 years ago I would have preferred a WeWork. Today the older me would prefer to be in a Venture X. So instead of staying at a Courtyard or the W, I'd prefer to stay at the Marriott, the Hilton, the Hyatt Regency, or the Ritz-Carlton, or the Westin. And that's kind of the segmentation that we're going after, which is an upper class, essentially co-working grown up.
That's great, Jason. It's amazing how this whole, and you're right about that too, because I must admit, probably 3 years ago, I wasn't really familiar, with this whole concept either, Jason. And this whole concept of, I guess, sharing homes today, or cars, or apartments, and things like that. I mean, it really makes sense, doesn't it? I imagine, technology is a big part or an important part of this business. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, how Venture X utilizes technology in the business today, Jason.
Absolutely, and I think this is one of the biggest reasons you're seeing a consolidation in the industry, where a lot of people try to start in the business mom and pop, but they vastly underestimated the need for high-level technology. If you're going to Starbucks and you're spending $4 on a cup of coffee, you may not expect the Wi-Fi to be that fast. But if you're spending several $100s or several $1,000s a month to be in an office, you do. And our technology platform is we've actually launched the first fully integrated software and hardware platform on a large scale in co-working. So we've partnered with a company based in England that has recently went public, and we've launched an all-inclusive platform which pretty much turns our owners into their own internet and phone company right from the front desk. Meaning one of the faults of co-working was shared Wi-Fi.
Right.
Meaning if you had a business that you didn't want your information shared over public Wi-Fi, co-working wasn't an option for you. Now we have the capacity right at the front desk for the owner or the community manager to actually give you your own virtual private network or your own VoIP phone number right from the front desk. So if you rent an office space, you don't have to share the public Wi-Fi. We can actually turn on in your office your own internet network where you can name it, have your own password and security, and actually set up your own phone right from the front desk. So technology advancements have been a huge development in co-working, and we're excited to be one of the first large-scale operators to actually launch that full functionality into a space.
You're listening to Franchise Interviews, and we're speaking with Jason Anderson, the president of the fastest-growing co-working franchise, VentureX. And VentureX strives to provide high-quality, flexible, collaborative spaces to business professionals, allowing their members to grow their companies and exceed their business goals. And are there numbers yet as far as the industry, Jason? I mean, again, I know this is still it's a fairly new industry, but it seems to me, in looking at it again, as you said, the last 3 to 5 years, I mean, there's been significant growth in this industry. Are there any hard numbers, or it's hard to tell at this point?
No, and that's one of the most interesting things. For it being such a new industry, you would think that's the case, but it's absolutely untrue. I would go as far to say that it's one of the most reported industries in all of franchising, meaning at the end of the day, if you're looking to open up a sub shop and you ask somebody, what is the cheesesteak consumption in Manhattan? There's nobody that can give you that information. But if you ask somebody what is the occupancy rates of a specific building in Manhattan, that information exists. So
exactly.
To just dumb it down, we're only talking about commercial real estate. So it's saying, is there commercial real estate data, which there is as much data on commercial real estate as there is for you buying a house in a subdivision in any city in America. But specifically for co-working, there is. It's been capped at a $26 billion market industry, and we already have players like WeWork who have been valued at $45 billion. But again, some other numbers is that there's been a membership growth of actual co-working members from 500,000 in 2015 to 3.1 million in 2019, so nearly a 6,000% growth. And then Jones Lang LaSalle, that data is specifically from Juicy, which is the Global Co-working Unconference. And almost every major commercial real estate company has developed a co-working report. One specifically is from Jones Lang LaSalle. Collier's developed one, Cushman Wakefield. But the Jones Lang LaSalle report shows that currently in 2019, flexible workspace and co-working only makes up 5% of the office space market. They've plotted that number growing to 30% by 2030. Now, that 25% growth is this mix. 20% of that is people coming out of traditional offices into flexible workspace. The analogy I use for that is every time I go to New York, like I was just there for the New York franchise show, I get out JFK, there's dozens of taxis just sitting there, and I haven't got in one in probably 5 years. I call an Uber. And simply put, I don't want to have to tell the driver where to go, wonder how much it's going to cost, hope I get a receipt, and then have no way to give him a one-star review if he refuses to turn the air conditioner on or he's a horrible person. All of those things exist inside of Uber. It's simply put just a better way to do something than it was before. And that's all a co-working space is. So you have tenants coming out of traditional office space. They're no longer going to think, well, why should I buy coffee myself? Why should I set up my own Wi-Fi? Why should I buy furniture? They're going to come into co-working. The other 5% is made up of people that couldn't afford or didn't want to take the risk of old school, long-term traditional office leases, that they're trying their hand at launching their business, and they like the flexibility of month-to-month terms and scalability of co-working. So I think we have a huge 10-year runway of growth, and that's identified directly from Jones Lang LaSalle. And if you just Google co-working report, there's an entire website, coworkingstatistics.com, that gives you every data point that you could ever want globally on the industry.
It must be exciting for you, Jason, to be part of an industry, where you have this type of growth. I can't say that, we've had industries that have had your type of growth on the show, in doing the show 12 years. What's been, tough question, but what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since, being part of Venture X? You probably have hundreds of stories, but does anything kind of stand out over the last several years?
I think really, again, just the development of the industry. Like I said, if you were to look at 99% of other franchises, people kind of get and understand what you're doing. But to go from, in 3 years, people, and I am not exaggerating, and I'll say it again, I had somebody come up to our booth and ask me what coworking was, right?
I love that.
To go from people having no clue what it even meant to
Right.
it being a $26 billion industry and pretty much just the future of how we're going to do things. And again, I've been around franchising for a while, and I've helped close to 100 companies become a franchise, and I think you hit it on the head. I think it's just the true industry growth and the fact that franchising is involved so early on is the most interesting thing. And again, that's not to lessen or discount some of the owners that we have and the backgrounds and the experiences, but I think just as you pegged it, just the sheer industry volume and growth and the fact that we're talking about office space, right, and that being such a unique identifier has been the most interesting aspect.
What types of characteristics do you look for then, Jason? I mean, when you're meeting with prospective franchisees, I'm sure you have like a whole list of, kind of like characteristics or traits, but, so what types of characteristics then do you look for in your franchisees?
Well, and that's why I didn't want to diminish any of the values of the specific people, but the characteristics we're looking for, to be just kind of frank, is our investment is between $1 to close to $4 million. So obviously the people we look for had to have typically already been successful in some other type of venture in their life. Right. So we're not selling to first-time business owners or unseasoned, let's say, entrepreneurs or executives. So one of our big driving forces, and a lot of our owners have come from the hospitality industry, meaning they already own hotels. And when you look at some of the similarities, if you're going to open up a Holiday Inn, you're buying a space, you're building it, you're putting beds and furniture in each room, and then you're renting that out to people on a daily, weekly, monthly, or potentially long-term basis. When you look at a co-working space, it's the exact same thing. But we joke, that co-working has much better hours and less people involved.
That's
so,
true.
and we say, look, instead of having 200 toilets, you may have 4 that you have to manage, because a hotel runs 24/7, 365, and you have anywhere between 50 to 100 people to run it. And this, again, I love the hotel brands. I think they're all great opportunities. But a co-working space, again, our typical location has 3 to 4 employees, open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and very similar financial modeling, right? You have build a space, furnish it, lease it out to people on a daily, weekly, potential monthly or long-term basis. So again, a lot of our owners have come from that, or they're executives leaving high-end kind of Fortune 500 and organizations. One of our owners was the chief marketing officer for IBM in a previous life.
Wow. What is the training like then, Jason, for your new franchisees? I mean, once you decide, that you do like them, they like you, and they want to come on board as a franchise, do they come down to corporate headquarters for the training? Is that how it works?
They do, and you may have been familiar with speaking with Ray, but we have a 50,000 square foot world headquarters here in West Palm Beach. We have a basketball court and a 100-seat movie theater inside the building. That's our training facility. So this is something else that's really kind of made headlines in the co-working industry, because there's no co-working school. There's some online courses, and truthfully, the industry is so new that people that have worked at WeWork for 6 months are now high-end consultants in the industry because they truly have experience. But what we've done is we've developed a 2-week in-house training, meaning you're actually in a classroom learning firsthand and actually visiting real locations that are open, learning the ins and outs of co-working for 2 weeks. That's then followed up by 3 weeks of on-site support and setup. So our training program is a 5-week, 2 weeks in-house and 3 weeks on-site at multiple different times during your development and build-out. So we have a furniture delivery and install, setup and training. To have somebody to make sure that 400 desks are built properly, put into the right places, and everything's where it's supposed to be, and overseeing that. We then have an operation set up once all the technology and hardware and everything is live. And then we have a marketing setup and launch on site as well. And that's all before the grand opening of the location.
You're listening to Franchise Interviews, and we're speaking with Jason Anderson. And Venture X strives to provide high-quality, flexible, collaborative spaces to professionals, allowing their members to grow their companies and exceed their business goals. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, if there is such a thing, Jason, a typical day as a franchisee. I know you get to work with a lot of franchisees. What would a typical day be like as a Venture X franchisee?
Good question, and we're a franchise that allows owners, as you can imagine, at this level and scale, to be absentee. Up front, most of our owners are involved with the initial launch and development of the location, and then some of them hire staff that actually run it and don't spend very much time inside the location. So there's not a typical day like you would find in franchises that require an owner-operator and they don't allow absentee ownership. But a typical day for our owner is really, again, measuring metrics in the same way that a hotel owner would. So typically they're not the ones working the front desk or actually meeting and greeting customers and tenants as they come into the space. So they're really focused on kind of revenue generation, what's the current occupancy rates, and what's the goals to either improve upon that or maintain that level of occupancy. So it's a really kind of data and metric-driven role, and that's why we find a lot of high-level executives really kind of like that overview and why a lot of people are coming from the hospitality industry to this. Because if you can understand the logistics of running a hotel and changing sheets and mattresses and things on a daily basis, the coworking industry definitely seems like a simpler business model. The other aspect is, to expand upon that point, it is a very simple business model. Right, there's no cost of goods sold, essentially. You have very fixed expenses. So you have your rent, which is typically a 10-year lease unless you own the property. You have 3 or 4 employees, your utilities, and all the basic kind of things that come along with owning a space. And that's pretty much it. And then you rent out the space for more than you're spending on the expenses. Right, so there's no monitoring of how much food do we have to order, how much inventory do we have the right mix of products. So while it's a large investment, it's an unbelievably simplistic and easy P&L. You don't need to have Ernst & Young level kind of consultants. You can really create this on a simple Excel spreadsheet, the P&L for this business.
You've been involved in franchising for some time, Jason, and again, you work with an organization that really specializes in franchising. What advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because as you know, you just attended the franchise show in New York, and you know that there's thousands of opportunities out there. We find that our listeners, in the beginning phases anyway, they're kind of like confused. They're like, where the heck do I even begin? So, I mean, from everything you've learned up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise?
Well, you're right. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people and sold franchises and franchising their business, and the 3 things I would tell anybody looking to buy a franchise, to break it down very simplistically, because I think people vastly overcomplicate franchising. So the first thing I tell them when they're looking to buy a franchise, regardless of what it is the first 2 things is they have to be able to say yes to these first 2 questions, meaning for the franchise fee that you're paying up front, do you feel like you're going to get a better deal for that fee than you would have if you spent the equal amount of money doing everything on your own? That answer has to be 100% yes. And with Venture X, our franchise fee, I feel 1,000% confident you can't replicate what we provide from website, logo, marketing, branding, training. You cannot get it for less or potentially double even what you actually pay us. So the franchise fee has to make sense up front. Then the royalties, because these are the 2 things people get caught up with all the time on franchising, that reason they either don't want to do it or they want to do it. Then the royalty. Let's use 6% as an average franchise royalty across the board. You have to feel comfortable that the franchise you're choosing and going with can help you do at least 7% more revenue than you would have done on your own. Right? So if you feel comfortable with that, meaning if you opened up, Marty Subs, do you think you would do 7% more if you opened up a Jersey Mike's instead? And
Right.
generally speaking, I think the consensus, you have to feel 100% confident that the answer is yes, first two things. Because every other cost in the middle you would have had on your own. And I can almost guarantee that you would have made more mistakes, not done it right, messed up on the marketing, had no idea where to buy the products from. So if those two things are a yes, then franchising is an astronomically better option than doing the business on your own. If those two first things are no, don't buy the franchise. The third thing I would tell people is, what do you want to wear on a daily basis? And that sounds like an odd question, but I've met people that I've met with, and I'm meeting with them, and they're in a suit and tie, and they're coming from, again, a Chevron, or they work for GlaxoSmithKline, and they're looking to buy a franchise in an industry that completely has no bearing to the human being that they are, right? And again, this is not a knock on the businesses. I met an oil executive who was looking to buy a sports clips, right? And great business. He was going to buy an existing location. And I asked him, have you ever got your hair cut at a sports clips? No. Have you ever worked with stylists before? No. So tell me what about this business makes sense to you. He it doesn't. It was like the first one I looked at. So I'm like, let's kind of rule that one out. So we got him into a professional franchise, right? And vice versa. I met a guy that, who's family owned, service-based businesses, and he wanted to work with mechanics and people around there, and he got into a service-based automotive franchise. But again, he was also looking at different professional franchises that were a horrible fit for his personality. So those are really the three kind of key things I tell people to look at is, do you feel confident that the franchise fee is a better value than you would do on your own? And do you feel confident that the royalty could pay for itself? If it is, and you like that industry, every other fee you would have had in the middle on your own. So franchising vastly reduces your risk of launching that business. Nobody can guarantee success, but the franchise should definitely pay for itself with those two fees. And then pick something that fits your personality. Don't get sold on an industry that you have no interest in. You still have to be an entrepreneur and kind of love what you do.
It's what a great response, Jason. Again, I was mentioning to you earlier, we've been doing the show 12 years, and I think that's one of the best answers. We have this great quotes in franchising, we're going to put that in there, because I think it's fantastic. It was interesting how you said, how do you want to dress? My father, you never saw the guy he was always wearing a suit and tie, that was he'd go to the beach almost with a suit and tie, that was just how he was comfortable, you know what I mean? And, you bring up a lot of great points in bringing up those three questions, I think it's just, I think it's a fantastic response for our listeners. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, so where do you see VentureX, and if you can look into a crystal ball, maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, where do you see the organization, Jason?
Very simply put, we plan on being the third largest co-working franchise in those 3 to 5 years. We've actually plotted 3 years exactly, 36 months, so summer 2022 to already be there. With 80 plus sold, we've pegged right now that we need about 120 open locations to make us the third largest co-working space, period. That's behind Regis and WeWork. So that's our goal.
That's great. Do you see it going international at some point, Jason? There's enough of a market here in the United States, so you probably don't even have to worry about that right now. But sometime in the future, do you see it going international?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I missed that at the first beginning. We already are, right? So we've opened up in Canada. Wow. We already have a sold-out location in Canada, 2 more already under construction being built, and we've sold 25 other countries. Now, let me explain that. So we're already open in the U.S. We've already sold Canada. We've sold the U.K. We've also now sold all 22 countries of Middle East, North Africa, and Australia. And we have deposits. Those are sold. So we've already sold 26 countries that we're in. And we have 4 more deposits pending: New Zealand, Brazil, Mexico, and Spain. So we already are international.
That's amazing. Do you get to go to all these places, Jason? That must be great for you, too.
I do. I spend quite a bit of time on the road. I've spent 90 days in Australia in the last 2 years collectively.
That's incredible. You have a great job. How can our listeners get more information, Jason, on VentureX, as, of course, the franchise opportunity, but even the service itself? Are there any websites we can kind of direct them to get more information?
There are. The consumer site is venturex.com. That's where you could go to look at all of our locations, pictures, details, and request more information. And the franchise website is venturexfranchise.com. Or I put my email openly out there on my LinkedIn page. You can email me directly at jason@venturex.com for any details on either side.
That's fantastic. Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you, Jason. I think this is a wonderful franchise opportunity, and I'd already like to invite you back in the next year or two as you continue to grow, because I think this is an amazing opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks again, Marty.
This has been my pleasure, Jason. And we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up on segment 2, you're going to hear what every franchipreneur needs to know before buying a franchise. We're going to play a clip from our popular Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Today's Great Quote in Franchising is being brought to you by
The Stone Coat Franchise Opportunity. Are you looking for a unique and lucrative franchise opportunity? If so, take a look at Stone Coat. With a patented process which creates a true stone finish on almost any wall or ceiling, Stone Coat is a true game-changing product in the multi-billion-dollar construction industry. Stone Coat is applied faster, cleaner, and cheaper than conventional quarried stone, which saves both time and money. With advantages in remodel and new construction of both residential and commercial projects, Stone Coat is a true crossover product. The Stone Coat franchise opportunity provides a low startup cost, low operating expenses, comprehensive training, ongoing support, and no royalty payments. For more information on the Stone Coat franchise opportunity, go to www.stonecoatfranchise.com. That's www.stonecoatfranchise.com, or call us at 972-380-2700. That's 972-380-2700.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting franchise interviews many years now, and the way this whole podcast came about was we were looking to do, over the years, we've had some great quotes on our show. So we decided to do these like little mini clips of kind of like a best of segment because there was some really great, significant information within each show. And we didn't realize that this particular podcast, was going to turn into something just as big as the radio show. So today you're going to get to hear an interesting clip from Larry Sidati, and he is the Chief Development Officer of a franchise called Paris Baguette. And he says something really interesting. We're going to call this podcast You Really Gotta Love Me, but you got to listen to it to find out why. Get into franchising, but we find from doing the show such a long time now that many aspiring franchipreneurs, they don't know where to begin. What advice would you give to them in their quest to buy a franchise because you've been doing this such a long time now?
I would say you look at something that you can get passionate about and are very excited about. You need to be clear on what your objectives are and your goals.
Right.
You need to look beyond the superficial stuff. Like, again, I know money is extremely important, but you got to look past just the money part of it. You got to look at something that you can get heavily invested in emotionally and also financially, and that you believe in. And when I say that, the most important part of a franchise relationship is alignment. You have to make sure that you're aligned with that company that you would be getting involved with, and they're aligned with you, and which means you have to believe in what they believe in. You have to have similar values, and you have to make sure that you are in tune with the leadership of that company, that you know them intimately and understand what's driving them and what you basically got to put yourself in the organization,
right?
And try to come out with a decision that you feel totally comfortable with and aligned with, and just make sure that all the pieces are in place and you do your due diligence. Don't get trapped into something that you think is a hot concept or something that looks great today, because there's a lot of here today is gone tomorrow, and I live in the capital of that right now.
I can't tell you how many times I get the question, because, doing the show such a long time, Larry, is, from an aspiring franchipreneur, it's like, what's hot right now in franchising? And you're right, I typically have the same responses. You might want to be a little careful about, what's hot today, because you're right. It's a lot of times it's gone in 5 years, isn't it?
Yeah, and you also, you've got to be aware of how easy it is to get involved in it, because if it's easy, people are going to spring up into it.
Sure.
And it's going to get, there are, the pizza space right now is going through that. There's going to be a consolidation, because in every region there's no clear dominant player yet.
Right.
But you have all these players, and they can't all survive. And
no, they can't.
Sooner or later, you can get caught up in something like that, saying it's really, really hot. It's a great concept, but, when guys start putting 2 or 3 of them within 2 blocks of each other, and you start splitting the market and everything becomes commoditized, that's a low barrier of entry category that can deceive you into a bad decision. I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I'm just saying it's an example of getting into something that is not really a high barrier of entry category, so you have to be very careful and make a very careful decision.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I like how you used on several instances in this interview, Larry, is you emphasize the word relationship. And a lot of times when someone will ask me, to describe a franchise, is that's what I describe it as. It's a relationship, isn't it? And you kind of put an emphasis also on that, having that trust in the franchisor is a key element of franchising, isn't it?
At the end of the day, if you're married, this is your second spouse.
Yeah,
and if
said.
You're not married, this is your first spouse. And anyone that's ever been married knows you better be completely aligned with who you're marrying, or else things don't go right. And that's very painful when it spins out and goes the wrong way. So, when I speak with franchisees, and I'm, one of the things that I often say is, look, we're going to be married. This is a contract, but it's a marriage.
Right.
And you really got to love me, because if you don't,
I like that.
It's not going to end well. And you just need to look at it as, hey, we're dating, and we're going to get engaged, and then we're going to get married, and
right.
We're not always going to agree, but at least we know that we can disagree and walk away and come back and agree on other things. It's got to be that kind of a relationship.
That's great. We have this free quotes and franchising podcast. We're going to put that in there, Larry. I think that is great advice to our listeners. If you'd like to listen to that whole show with Larry Sadati of Paris Baguette, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com, go to our franchise interviews by category page, and then go to the food section, and you can actually hear that whole interview. It was a fantastic show, a podcast we did with Larry. And finally, we just want to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big hit. It's hard to imagine we've been doing this podcast, radio show, almost a decade now, so it's really quite incredible how quickly the time has gone by. So we want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Spring has sprung at Camelback Mountain Adventures, marking the start of the new season of peak thrills. Take in the unbeatable views of the Pocono Mountains as you glide through the sky on our exhilarating zip lines. Experience peak adventure as you cruise on our UTV tour, or ride Pennsylvania's only mountain coaster. There are so many ways to make the most of spring in the Poconos. Visit CamelbackResort.com and get ready to find your peak. That's CamelbackResort.com.
Hey, hon, can you grab me some Lumino whitening strips? They don't give me any sensitivity. Look for the aqua blue box with gold letters.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you got it. You mean Luminex?
It's pronounced Lumino. It's French.
Looks like Luminex, but fine. I got your Lumino. See, that was my French. Hello.
Lumino whitens without temporary enamel damage associated with peroxide using Dead Sea salt, coconut, and lemon peel oils. 100,000 people give Lumino 5 stars. Look for Lumino in Walmart, Target, and CVS stores.